Next up, and this has to do with financial advice. One of the things that I love most about being a financial advisor, when you have the ability to have your licenses revoked, to have your certifications removed, it gives you a higher bar of responsibility when you give advice, which is why when you talk to people who have licenses, who are in a position where they are regulated, it's unlikely that you'll find a person who will just tell you everybody needs to do XYZ. In fact, I would bet that if you round up 10 people online who are telling you definitively that this is the way that you should do something financially, you might look at those 10 people and find that 8 or 9 or 10 of them are not licensed or regulated. So there's not as much at risk if they give you information that ends up harming you. Well, the reason that I like that element of what we do is because my opinion is when it comes to financial advice, it is far more valuable to understand your options than it is to understand rules of thumb. And that is the way that most publicly available financial advice is written. Clickbait headlines about exactly how much you should put towards food, exactly what percentage of your income you should put towards rent or your mortgage, whether you're behind in retirement savings, and what the numbers say you should have saved by a particular age. It doesn't mean anything. What's more valuable is understanding your options if you are on track, ahead of pace, or behind. So I don't care how much you spend on a mortgage. I care far more about teaching you how many ways you can structure a mortgage, which is why we did an episode on whether you should actually put 20% down on a property. I don't care how much you put towards your 401k. I care far more about knowing how to increase the amount you put towards your 401k. I care about telling you how to respond when you're behind in retirement planning. These are the episodes that I feel add the most value, and I hope that if you've listened to this podcast consistently, you feel a little better about ignoring the rules of thumbs that you can't follow that you see online. And that actually leads to the fourth point that I want to make, and it has to do with how these articles are written. I have been extremely fortunate, partially because of these podcasts, to be in a position where truly, if not weekly, definitively every other week, we're reached out to by some publication who wants us to submit a quote or be interviewed for an article. So I've been through the process 25 to 50 or more times a year of being able to sit with the reporter, give my opinion as a quote unquote financial expert, and see behind the curtain of how these article ideas are generated. And you'd be interested to know that for most publications, there are not many staff writers who are writing these articles. They have a few, but you often find that these are freelance people with an interest in finance who are writing for multiple publications at a time. And they often get paid per article, which means that they are incentivized to bring quality article ideas to that newsroom and to that editorial staff. Even if you have a staff writer, they're going to have meetings where they go through things based on trends in the industry that they know are going to generate clicks. And then they reach out to financial experts that are in their Rolodex and they ask them to submit quotes or to sit down for an interview. And the reason I say that is because these people do excellent work, but the goal of a financial publication is to get an audience to what they are producing. And it is just simply not as valuable to do a ton of articles about the importance of an emergency reserve. It's more valuable to put out an article about how much money you should have saved by 30, 40, and 50, and what to do if you don't have those funds saved. Now, to be clear, I contribute to those articles. I have been quoted in those publications for that type of content, but it's important to know that even if you're reading an article, that inside of that article has great points from a great writer and great contributors that gives you advice that's helpful to your finances, it goes through a similar process to what you see on social media, where they're going to be trying to have a headline or an opening statement that speaks to you, even if the depth of that content reveals a little more context. And at some point, you have to have a mechanism to clear out the fluff of a headline from what you can actually put in place to benefit your money.